Good work gets you to a particular level, but then you have to change trajectory and figure out what's next. What got you here is never going to get you to the next level, right? That's the fundamentals of any kind of a growth story. We build a center of culture of saying, I'm boundless. Are you becoming better by 1% every day?
Correct. Are you better than the day before?
I cringe when I see somebody saying, oh, listen, this is a fresher guy. He wants to do AI, ML. Why? Learn my business.
Show me the money.
Make your voice count. I ensure I'm heard. I'm not unreasonable. I take a no. But I never let go of opportunity to ask. Currency of trust is important. It comes by ensuring that the bread and butter is on the table every day. You don't want jam every day. You want your bread and butter every day.
I love the analogy. So, how not to put yourself in a pickle or a jam. It's fun talking to you. It's like a masterclass. I'm already thinking of an acronym TAR: Trust, Accountability, Reliability. So, what are you going to lay the tar on today, right? So, that's fabulous. I love it. Welcome to this episode of Zinnov's podcast, GCC Unfiltered. Whether you are leading a GCC, building one, or are just plain curious, this is where we bring you the real insights that matter. Hi everyone, I'm Nitika Goel, Managing Partner and CMO at Zinnov. And today I am thrilled to be speaking with Sheenam Ohri, Managing Director at Broadridge Financial Solutions, India. Now, Sheenam, to many of you, probably needs no introduction. She is not just the head of Broadridge, but she is what we call a true blue ecosystem orchestrator. She is a catalytic thinker who sees systems not just as symptoms, but problems that need to be solved. And she does this every single day. Her roles included Dell Technologies, Edgeverve, and SAP, where she's driven innovation and business transformation across industries. So thank you for making the time to be here today. I'm really excited about what this episode is going to cover.
Nitika, thank you very much for having me here. Thank you for the brilliant introduction. And it's always an honor and privilege to be back here.
Love it. So Sheenam, I'm going to just, for our audience, just to get us started, I would love to understand a little bit more about Broadridge. Could you tell us about your organization in less than a minute?
Sure. So our vision from a Broadridge perspective is pretty simple, Nitika. We are in the business of enabling better financial lives, and we do it through technology that enables investor communication, governance, capital markets, wealth, and asset management. Over 10 trillion worth of dollar transactions flow through a Broadridge system every day. We are in a very niche segment, but a boutique segment where we power 85% of US equity markets in one way or the other. Right. In India, Broadridge has a strength that's almost 1/3 of its global strength. And we've been in the country for about 28 years, 29 years right now, doing really well for the company, contributing to its core products, its innovation cycles, its customer innovations, its experiences that we want to deliver. So that's about who we are.
That is a fantastic summary. You mentioned you are 1/3 of your global organization, and I'm guessing doing higher order work. So in that case, what do you think has been the biggest shift from a systems thinking process as well as a people and leadership lens?
That's an excellent question. So when we started off as Broadridge, right, globally, we are an offshoot of ADP. In 2007, when we started off, we were about 450 people, and we were doing both development and R&D. Over the last 2.5 decades, we've grown in India. We've grown not just in managed services or shared services, but we've grown substantially in engineering capability. Today, Broadridge India houses over 300 squads, fully formed cross-functional squads that are capable of delivering anything that the globe is possibly, delivering. So we are, from that perspective, as competent as anybody else in the organization. Now, a sheer evolution perspective, I think Broadridge India was never created by John Hogan and Rich Daley as a cost arbitrage center, right? They came to India, they saw talent, and then they wanted to have, talent contributing to the organization. But over time, what we've done is we've built COEs in India. The entire blockchain COE that, contributes to our DLR, the entire platform around distributed ledger technology, the AI engineering capabilities, all of that are housed in India.
How did that come to India? Did that happen organically? Did there have to be a leadership shift, a cultural shift?
I think a lot of it was also driven by leadership. Some of it predates me. I've been in the system for 4.5 years. But, I think the hunger, the pride and the passion, the ideas that are coming from the site enabled the trust to, make that happen. We've been a highly trusted capability arm for the organization. We are transforming ourselves to be the capability center for all of Broadridge. That is essential for our goals. We focus on talent. We focus on, high-end transformation. We focus on the ecosystem. We focus on our clients that have GCCs here. And we are trying to change the culture of the organization as we go along, right? When you're far away from the headquarters, there is always an essence of, do I belong or do I not belong? How do you create a one company culture, a one Broadridge culture is very, very important. How do you create a culture where the associates at large believe that they will be heard?
I think you brought in a very interesting question, and I'm going to bring in another angle, right? What brought you here? Do you think it can take you to the next level? And also the perception that what brought you here, is it enough to take you to the next level?
So what got you here is never going to get you to the next level, right? That's the fundamentals of any kind of a growth story. And I tell this to all my people that, good work gets you to a particular level, but then you have to change trajectory and figure out what's next. Now, AI changes the way we work. With the advent of AI and everything that's happening in the world right now, I think it's very, very important to have human-centric, creative thinking innovation, right? So organizations at large have to build that kind of culture. Now, if I look at really this culture that we have at Broadridge and what we have kind of built for ourselves in the India Center, we built a center of culture of saying, I'm boundless. And the boundless had two pillars to it. One was I'll have complete ownership. Okay. And the other one was that I would be an entrepreneur and I would risk take, right? We broke that down further and we said ownership is all about output. It's all about outcomes and it's about impact, right? So there is a cycle and we took the organization through what that meant for them. Then we went into entrepreneurship. All of that leading into, equal citizenship. And entrepreneurship is also not about massive change. It's about, we talk to the organization and every time we talk to the organization, we say, are you becoming better by 1% every day?
Correct. Are you better than the day before?
Yes. And that by itself is so powerful as a change, right? Are you willing to take risks? Are you leveraging the seat on the table to have a voice on the table? How are you really pushing your team forward? How are you pitching? We've taken people through communication exercises where we've talked about impactful communication. We've talked about the art of storytelling. We've talked about how you leverage yourself, right, as a brand. So we've done all of that and kind of build an organization to say, I exist and I can do more and I'm hungry to do more. The thinking prowess has to change. The fact that you challenge the status quo more often has to change. I am doing this in a particular manner. Can I do it better tomorrow? Can I be made redundant day after tomorrow? Right? These are difficult questions. So I think the next change, the next culture pyramid for us is to see how our associates can really be confident in their shoes to unwind and relearn again.
I think you beautifully articulated that, Sheenam. I'm going to switch gears. If you had to think about it from an overall GCC lens in India, and you are probably seeing the break points very objectively as an outsider in perspective, what are some of the mistakes you think organizations are making?
I see around me and some of the things that I learn and think about not doing, and maybe I'm still doing it, but I try not to do, are define your own goal, right? As a capability center that's essential to drive Broadridge's goals, I have to ensure that I am delivering to those goals. I'm accelerating those goals. Those goals are mine, right? I see a lot of leaders in India who want to run their own charter. They want to have their own charter of innovation. They want to have their own charter of customer success and stuff like that. If you integrate into the fabric of the organization, if you start to contribute to the goals of the organization, acceleration becomes that much more higher. So that's one thing that I've seen doesn't work so well.
So if I have to summarize it, it's like a personal agenda rather than a organization-wide agenda.
Yeah, like I want to do this better. I want to have my own AI agenda. I want to create a product myself. If you're contributing and you're creating a product together with the rest of the globe, there's absolutely no problem in that.
Shinima, what about cases where, and we see this often, right? Because we do track the maturity model, and lots of companies after 10 years, 20 years, even though they try to build trust through micro wins or successes, they've still struggled to change the locus of control. When I say locus of control, is like trust to do not module work, but own a product end to end or own a certain function end to end. There is still a push and a pull with global organizations. So in that case, unless they align, and what can they do different?
So I'm going to challenge that, right? Why do you need to own a product end to end? Why do you need to own something end to end? If you're a part of an organization and you own the organization, you own the product, right? Now, why do organizations build capability centers outside of the headquarters? They want to have a follow the sun model. They are serving customers across the globe. They want to ensure that they have support available across the globe. They want to see work that gets created in geography 1, that is amplified by geography 2, amplified by geography 3. Global ownership is not about, I have my name against this product. Global ownership is about, if the customer wakes up and says, hey, listen, Sheenam, your team did this for me last night and it was brilliant. That's global ownership. Global ownership is when I stand in a meeting and I'm a part of Tim's ELT, I stand in that meeting and say, I need this support. 4 people raise their hand and say, Sheenam, I'm aligned to what you're saying. I'll support you. Global ownership is not about owning a product end to end, because that's not the model that the organization is created on, right? Now, I'll give you why. Again, that cannot work. 85% of my customer base sits in the US. I am not awake when the customer is having an issue. If I need global ownership, I need somebody to be awake. I'm not going to find the right talent who's going to stay up the night and do the graveyard shift. Right? Graveyard shift is very difficult. You see operations teams suffering from that. Right? But if somebody says, hey, listen, you are as important to me as the next person sitting in the US, I think that's enough. And that was my second point that I was going to come to, right? Global leadership is a misconcept. People in India think they are not global leaders. And I challenge that, right?
I love challenges all the time. Sheenam,
Why?
go for it.
Why? Why are you not a global leader, right? What is the work that I'm doing as the head of Broadridge India not global? 33%, 35% of the organization sits in India. If India as a hub does not deliver, Broadridge is unsuccessful.
You have enough critical mass to make that needle tip.
Yeah. The AI COE engineering sits in India. Blockchain end to end actually sits in India, except the product manager, because you just sit next to the customer. Yeah. But all of 80% of my run the house projects are in India. And trust me, if I have to choose between run the projects, run the bank, and transform the bank, I would any day choose run the bank.
I have to ask why.
Because that's where the money comes from, right? The moolah comes by running the bank. The moolah doesn't come from transforming the bank. You're creating the future. It is exciting, right? I cringe when I see somebody saying, oh, listen, this is a fresher guy. He wants to do AI ML. Why? Learn my business. Come in, get into mainframes and learn my business. If you're good, you'll get the best. But learn the business. The money.
Yeah, where the money is coming from.
Where the money is coming
Show
from.
me the money.
Not only that, right? That's the highest impact that you're creating for the organization. If that product runs seamlessly, without an issue, day after day, somebody will pay for the transformation. Otherwise, they will not pay for the transformation.
You will pay for the transformation as well, right? So the money that you're making will eventually pay for the transformation.
No, like I'll get people to buy other things. Today, if Broadridge is moving from being a product company to a platform company, and I say I want to own a portion of the platform, that's not going to happen. We are in a transition phase. Right? India cannot be saying, I'll own BRX, which is the data transformation layer, or I'll own, this portion. But I have the global leader of platform product management sitting in India. Why did that role come to India?
Because you demonstrated and you had the money.
You had trust. Trust. Yeah, that currency of trust is important. And that doesn't come by latching onto the next shiny object. It comes by ensuring that that the bread and butter is on the table every day. You don't want jam every day. You want your bread and butter every day.
I love the analogy. So, how not to put yourself in a pickle or a jam. It's fun talking to you. It's like a masterclass. I'm already thinking of an acronym TAR: Trust, Accountability, Reliability. So, what are you going to lay the tar on today, right? So that's fabulous. I love it. I'm going to ask you, what is the one thing that you think as an ecosystem we really need to unlearn?
That's a good question. When we start saying us for the parent organization and ourselves, a lot of change will happen within ourselves.
You feel a part of the team.
Yeah.
It's the language. It's the little things.
It's the language, right? They don't allow. I still hear it in Broadridge. It's not as if it has changed, right? So I'm not telling you that that's a culture that we have been able to change, but we are slowly and gradually making that change happen, right? When somebody turns around and says they will not like it, and I say, okay, who's the they? Is it our clients? No, the people in the US. Okay, so they are they, and not us.
We are Broadridge, my friends.
Yeah. So that language with leaders has now started to change. I think that's something that we need to unlearn. I believe newer organizations, as they are being set up, will not have that issue. It's the ethos of the existing companies, that fabric of culture has to change.
But one thing that I'd like to ask, we are very well known for jugaad, being very quick to respond to change, resilient and everything. Why do you think we've been so slow to take to this change?
We're afraid. Fear is there, right? It's not there in the younger generation, right? We hire 20% of our talent now comes from colleges. The younger generation is not afraid. It's for us, it's been a little difficult. It's also the way we've grown up, right? How our parents grew us up and how we kind of grew up our children. That fabric also has changed. So, the cultures change, they evolve, they become less stringent, they become more open. And that's what's happening to the IT industry also in India. That's how I see it.
So do you think the nomenclature that we have for the ecosystem is something that also needs to be called into question? Or, like you said, it's about the little words, the us and things. So do you think global capability is the right word for this ecosystem?
See, at some point of time, we have to stop using such phrases. Like internally, I don't believe I've ever said that I'm a GCC. Right? I'm Broadridge. And if I have to classify, I'm Broadridge India. But I've never said I'm a GCC for Broadridge. Right? People in the US, people in the UK don't understand that word. Right? So why use it? If you have to call yourself something, you just... At one point of time, I thought about twins. That also, makes you separate. You just say you're a part of the family. So I'm a hub. In a hub and spoke model, I'm a hub.
Understood. I think that's a good way to think. We do call it hub and spoke, but do we need to call it just a global hub?
Yeah.
That's something that we
Correct.
can even look at and contemplate. The other thing that I also quickly wanted to check with you is a little bit about the ecosystem. There's been a few key companies that have anchored the growth of this ecosystem in their respective sectors. But now it's also a time to give back. And I don't see that as much as it should happen. What's your take on this, the role of ecosystem orchestration? Or do you think I'm just overplaying it and that it's already happening and in the works for many companies?
I think it's already happening, but it can be better, right? And I briefly touched upon this, right? We have a strategy for India, and Broadridge itself has a strategy for every 6 years. So we are in our 4th edition of that strategy for Broadridge. So India's strategy was to become a materially accessible capability center for Broadridge, right? And in that, we had 4 pillars. The 3rd pillar is everything about the ecosystem. So we define ecosystem as the academia. We define ecosystem as the community. We define ecosystem as startups, and we define ecosystems as our clients, right? Clients who have the same kind of capability centers that we have in India. So I think we have leveraged not very well the startup ecosystem, and we can do much better there. That's something that I personally believe I'm not very happy with. So Broadridge India at large has a huge opportunity to work with the startup ecosystem in our space and to do much, much more. In the client ecosystem, we launched, the account management function a year and a half back. We have done 2 events for our client summit and an annual summit. The 3rd aspect of the community is the academia. And I'm exceptionally proud of the forays that we are making into that. We have launched something called the Student Ambassador Program. And in the Student Ambassador Program, we have a student representative from the campus, generally from 3rd year, 2nd year or 3rd year. And this student is responsible to work with us. The second one that I'm exceptionally proud of is what we have done with 2 universities. We've done it with LPU and SOA. And we've actually curated a 1 semester, 1 single credit program that we've taught to the teachers. The teachers came to our offices, both in Bangalore and Hyderabad. They went through the program. We are holding their hands. Train the trainer kind of thing. And we are rolling out a program which teaches them AI and cloud and blockchain. But it's a nice 6-month-long 40-hour program. The 3rd thing that we have done with the academia, and you're aware of this, is the BFSI consortium. Broadridge is a key partner in the consortium in India, in Bangalore and Karnataka. We worked with the ITBT department and ensured that we now work with we have about 500 students enrolled. The target to go to 1,000 students, but we want to again launch a mini credit program over 3 years. Just in the space of domain, with the idea that it's not just technology which is going to be important going forward, right? It's going to be technology-led innovations. So that's, the thing.
The trifecta of everything needed to be a truly well-rounded engineer or contributor to the GP.
Absolutely. And the 4th part of that ecosystem is the community. And my associates make me really proud of that, right? While Broadridge does what it needs to do, we have over 90% of our associates contributing voluntary hours. It's a deep pillar for associate engagement, but the smiles that I see on people's faces after they've done something, when they come and talk to me, it helps me sleep better at night.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It just makes it all seem worth it.
Yeah,
Purpose.
Correct.
I think and this is like a great segue to what I wanted to talk about. On one side, we've talked about empathy, community, articulation. We've talked about nuance. We've talked about all the good stuff. On the other side, we have AI rewriting everything, which is like hardcore data decision. How do you see AI showing up in the industry? It's sort of unraveling itself. And how much of it do you think is hype? How much of it do you think is reality?
I don't think that question anybody has an answer to right now, right? How much of it is hype? How much of it is reality? We don't know. Different people use different figures, which I don't believe today they have a way of validating. Is it going to change the way we work? Definitely, it is. It has the powers to do that. How do we allow it to impact us in a manner that we are faster, that we have more quality, yet we maintain the human-centric innovation that I talked about, is going to be key. Coming to the business that we run, right? We are a highly regulated, highly protected business. So, ensuring we do the right thing every day for every transaction is critical. Ensuring that we are protecting the data of our clients and their clients is also equally important. So change in our industry can never be disruptive. Having said that, there are two levers that all organizations are looking towards. One is to seeing how this technology can help them become faster, more productive, more efficient, right? So whether it's tech for tech or tech for ops or tech for shared services, there are use cases that are being investigated right now. They're being invested in right now. And people are trying to figure out what's the best way of a human-machine interaction and of how one can make that happen. The second is, what are the innovations that you can do with data, right? And data has been a play for more than a century, right? AI has been a practice, has been a course for 100 years, right? It's been there in universities. So AI is not new. But really, how do you learn from the data? How does the data talk to you? How do you use your own mental powers and your intelligence to leverage that data and convert it into models that our customers can benefit from is something that we have to design now.
From an ecosystem perspective, I think Broadridge has a great, the fact that you have an AI academy is, I think, far thinking. Because one of the things we keep talking about is the productivity paradox, right? I think people saying, oh, engineers are more capable, so I won't hire more. But they're always level setting at the same level because the job descriptions haven't changed. The learning methodology has not changed.
Yeah.
The skilling and upskilling is not fully changed. And the KPIs haven't changed. So what are we measuring differently when?
I think right now, like I told you, there isn't too much data available as to what the technology can and cannot do. So people are running their own experiments. They're running their experiments in their labs. We're also doing the same thing. We'll figure out what comes out of it and therefore what needs to change. I would think another year.
That's not too much
Too
to
far
us.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not too far
it's
away.
not too far away.
Great. So I think I got a bunch of things from you, Chinam. I think for me, where you said trust, accountability, reliability, where you talked about it being different cultural fabrics, you talked about a bunch of things. But before we end this podcast with you, and I'm pretty sure our audience has also got a wealth of things to sort of ruminate on, I want to do a rapid fire. I know you are a
Okay.
Shah Rukh fan.
Yes, I am.
So this is something you've probably seen on his friend Karan Johar's couch. Have you seen?
Yes, I have.
Absolutely.
Coffee with Karan.
Coffee with
Yeah,
Karan,
yeah.
yes. So I'm just going to, it takes the same philosophy, short, quick answers. I know we have a couple here, but I'm going to change it around a little bit
Okay.
because why not?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. What do you think is your superpower?
Listening to people.
If not the head of a GCC, what would your alternative career be?
I think I would be a coach.
Fabulous. What's your leadership philosophy in one line?
Inspire, listen, empower.
And if you had to take a vacation today to sort of regroup and re-strategize for the next 1 year, or what the possibilities or the art of possible in the next 1 year, what kind of vacation would you take?
Any beach. Take me to a beach.
Any time at a beach.
Yeah.
Lovely. What is your guilty pleasure and what do you do after listening to people, absorbing energy from them? But also, I'm sure you need a little downtime. What do you do every weekend to sort of regroup and
I
re-energize?
I binge on now OTT. Earlier, before COVID, we would be in a cinema hall every weekend. But OTT it is now. So OTT's changed the way things happen. You lounge in your chair and you can,
The comfort of your own home, literally.
comfort of your own home.
If I gave you a magic wand to architect the entire GCC ecosystem in India, what would you do? Even I don't know what I would do. But
Okay. I would change the word I think to I believe.
love it. And what is the best piece of advice you would give a 10-year younger GCC leader or a person who's just starting off to run a GCC?
Make your voice count. Okay. I'm known to be a fearless leader in the circles of Broadridge leadership.
I assure you outside as well.
So I ensure I'm heard. I'm not unreasonable. I take a no. But I never let go of opportunity to ask.
That's a fabulous way of looking at it. So I'm going to ask you another question, which was a little, I know we said it was hard for you. It may not be for an article, but this is, suppose somebody had to write a book on you. What would its title be?
She asked because she believed.
I love it. I think that is a great note to end this podcast. Thank you, Sheenam. It has been a true masterclass. I already feel a little coached myself on life lessons and other things.
I don't think you need it, Nitika.
Thank you. It's been a truly unfiltered, honest, raw, and I think that's what the ecosystem needs. Broadridge is doing great work and it's reflective. And what I really love about everything that you're doing is you're building a very wholesome culture internally, but you're also extending it to the broader ecosystem. And we get to experience this in some part every single day.
I'm extremely proud of the leaders in the organization. I'm extremely proud of the associates and their hunger to do more.
Love it. So therefore, I believe. And thank you. With that, we sign off. Thank you for being a great audience for this episode of GCC's Unfiltered. And once again, I sign off with Sheenam. Take care. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Zinnov Podcast. You've been listening to our new series, GCC's Unfiltered. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com.